Today I'm going to be making a really simple and delicious plant-based dish. As always, it's gluten-free, has a lot of delicious global flavors in it, so I think you're going to love it. Let's run down what we're going to be using for today's curry sweet potato bisque with roasted cauliflower. The first component of this meal is the curry sweet potato bisque. So you will need some roasted curry sweet potato. Coconut milk is going to give it a nice creamy texture. We're also going to be using about a cup and a half of water. We also are going to be using curry powder. I have Madras curry powder on hand today, but you can use whatever variety of curry powder you like. We'll also be using a little bit of vegetable broth base. This is just a vegetable broth concentrate, so we'll use a bit of this. We're also going to use a little bit of sea salt. We're going to use a bit of cinnamon. This is about a half teaspoon of cinnamon, just to bring out the natural sweetness in our sweet potatoes, and then some coriander. And another ingredient that we will need to make this bisque nice and creamy and thick, but also give it like some fiber, some extra nutrients, some extra protein, is white beans. So these are canned cannellini beans. This is a half cup that I strained and rinsed, but you can use whatever white bean you like. You could use navy beans, you could even use chickpeas, you could use red lentils. You just want to cook them in advance, and you need about a half cup of them for some extra body, some extra protein and fiber in this delicious bisque. So the other component of this is our roasted cauliflower. We have here 1/2 of a head of cauliflower that's been cut into medium-sized florets. I like to keep them, this size. It adds a nice composition and a nice contrast to the thick and creamy bisque with these nice hearty cauliflower florets. And we season these up with some oil as well as dukkha seasoning or dukkha spice blend. This is an Egyptian spice blend. It has things like sesame seeds, ground hazelnuts, cumin seeds, coriander seeds, black peppercorns, and salt. So this is a really delicious aromatic seed blend that I love to use. It's also going to have some za'atar in it. So za'atar is a Middle Eastern spice blend, and these two complement each other really well. So in addition to our dukkha and our za'atar, we're going to be using some onion powder and some garlic powder and some red chili flakes. We're just going to slice up some avocado and put that on top. It's almost like a palate cleanser as you eat. And then we're going to garnish it with some pickled red onions, as well as some sliced scallions. So really simple stuff we got going on here, but really, really flavorful stuff. Let's get started with our cauliflower. Now, your cauliflower, you're going to put the spice blend on it, and then it's basically going to need to cook for about 25 to 30 minutes in a preheated 400-degree oven. It may take a little bit less depending on how fast your oven cooks, but that is the sweet spot that I find for my cauliflower. So we're going to start off with about a tablespoon of oil here. I like to use grapeseed oil or avocado oil just because it has a nice high smoke point, so it's not going to burn in the cooking process, but coconut oil would also be really good in this. Now we're going to go in with about a teaspoon of our dukkha seasoning. This has salt in it, so be mindful of that. If you're going to add any other salts, I actually would just hold off and just use this to start. Then I'm going to go in with the za'atar, going in with about a teaspoon of this. Then we're going to go in with about a half teaspoon of garlic powder. As I mentioned, this is about a half a head of cauliflower, so we're just want to season it well, but we don't want to over season it. We don't want it to be overpowered. And then we're going in with about a half teaspoon of onion powder. And then we're going to go in with some of these red chili flakes just to give it a little bit of kick. And if need be, we can use the rest to garnish when it's all done. So I'm just going to now take my spoon, toss it around. I used a bigger mixing bowl to prep a batch before this demo started, and it was nice because I could just toss it and get everything nice and evenly coated with a nice shake like that. So that's also a way to go about it. Also, if you don't mind getting your hands dirty and you just want to get in there and toss it with your hands, feel free to do that. So this is nicely coated. So now I have a baking pan here. This is just my little mini baking pan that I use in my air fryer oven. But we're going to go ahead, put our cauliflower on the baking sheet here. Get it spread out in a nice even layer. get the stems of those cauliflower facing down. If they are sticking up, they'll be more likely to burn. So you want the heads kind of be the highest, the closest to the heat point, whatever that is. And then we're just going to get all this good spice in here. We've got our batch of cauliflower here ready to go in the oven. Once again, you want to put this in a 400-degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes, depending on how fast your oven cooks. And it's going to cook until it's tender. Through the magic of recipe prep, here is what our cauliflower looks like when it's done. So you see it has some nice golden brown edges on it. And like I said, it's chewier and more dehydrated in some spots, but it's also really tender too. So this is going to be the perfect topping for our sweet potato bisque. So like I mentioned, the sweet potatoes I'm using to make the bisque today are leftovers. So this is a fridge clean out recipe. So we're going to go in with about a tablespoon of oil again. All right. And then we're going to top it off very simply with our cinnamon. I love the cinnamon because it brings out the sweet notes in the sweet potatoes really easily, and I just think that that sweetness is going to be a beautiful complement to all the other spices we've got going on. Then I'm hitting this with about a quarter teaspoon of sea salt, not too much, because we're going to be using the vegetable broth base a little bit later, and we don't want it to get too salty. And then I have my ground coriander. I'm doing about a half teaspoon of that. And then we have our curry powder here. And I'm adjusting based off the fact that I just did one sweet potato. So we're doing about a half teaspoon of this. So very simple. Not too many spices, but these combination of spices are going to make a big impact flavor-wise. So once again, I'm just mixing this up till it's nice and coated. And you can cook these in the same time as you do your cauliflower, honestly. You could, even if you have a really big cookie sheet, put the sweet potatoes on one half and your cauliflower on the other half. It takes 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 to 30 minutes to get them nice and tender. And it's just that simple. Okay, so here's what our sweet potatoes look like when they're nice and coated. And then this is what they look like after baking in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes at 400 degrees. So before and after. Time to pull out our blender so that we can make this bisque. So I have my heat, my cooking eye here heating over medium heat. And while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and add my sweet potatoes to this blender cup. And this recipe makes about 3 to 4 servings. Just depends on how much garnish you want. Okay, so we have our 2 roasted sweet potatoes in here with that delicious curry. And then we're going in with our cannellini beans, 1/2 cup. Like I said, you could use chickpeas as well. You could use navy beans. You could use red lentils. Just make sure they're pre-cooked. Okay, now we're going to go in with about 1/2 cup of full fat coconut milk. You can use light if you like, but I want this nice and rich. So we're going with the full fat. You could use coconut cream, whatever you enjoy. It's going to make it nice and luscious. And then we're going to go in with about 1.5 cups of water here. Okay. And then finally, we're going to go in with about 1/2 teaspoon of this vegetable broth base, this vegetable broth concentrate. This is Maggi brand. So we've got all our ingredients in here. So now it's time to twist our lid on. Okay. And it's looking a little murky to start, but in just a few seconds, it's going to be nice and smooth. Okay, so our bisque is nice and smooth. If you have a Vitamix, you could just blend this until it gets warm if you wanted to, but we're not going to do all that. We're going to let our pot here do its job, but it has this beautiful, thick and creamy texture. And look at this color, it's gorgeous. I didn't even have to add any turmeric to it. This is so pretty. Okay, so we're just gonna pour this on in. Ooh, and it's already sizzling. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh no. Ah! Okay. Don't heat your pan too much before you pour the bisque in. Well, that was entertaining. I hope you all enjoyed that. So when it's thick, it does pop more. It's kind of like cooking grits. You know how grits pop up if you've ever made that, or polenta. Because it's thicker, more viscous, it will pop off when it heats up because the heat is trying to escape through this very thick mixture. So we're not going to make it fight with us. We're going to give it a lid, but whoa, look at this. Beauty, beauty. I love pretty food. It makes it so much more exciting to eat. And looking at this dish, you can know, just as a little nutrition tip, that because it has this really vibrant orangish yellowish color, it's really high in beta carotene. So high in nutrients, high in flavor, a wonderful eating experience overall. So we're just going to stir this up with our ladle. Let me see if I can show you a texture shot. You see that? You see that? Nice and smooth. Beautiful texture, nice and smooth. All right, so I'm just going to ladle this one in. A nice hearty all-in-one meal. And we're just going to put it down the middle. All right. Stack it in. I like something linear. Something about that comforts me. So we've got that vibrant bisque and then the earthy neutral tones of the cauliflower. Phase 2, cauliflower is in there, okay? Okay, now it's time for scallions. And I kind of want the greener ones. Once again, gives another layer of color. And these are raw, so right, freshness, right? And now we have pickle here. So it's going to give some nice brightness and tanginess. And we're just going to kind of put those front and center. That pink color is so pretty. Okay, I'm going to do 3 slices of our avocado here. This is a beautiful warming bowl of our curry sweet potato bisque with roasted cauliflower. So delicious. Creamy avocado, tangy pickled red onions, fresh scallions, roasted cauliflower, and that creamy, sweet, almost smoky bisque. Oh, so good. The layering of the roasted cauliflower and the onions and the avocado. Texture on texture. So good. Okay, one more time. Good. Very good.